Greetings! Welcome to another episode of Tier Nerds Tier Lists. This time I will be going over my recent Sacred Stones Iron Man in hard mode and how it ended in disaster. So I'm going to be going over the characters and how useful they were in my Iron Man. Now, this is not a normal tier list. Some of these characters would rank very differently in a normal playthrough, but this is pretty much what happened in my Iron Man. So first, I'd like to make a distinction. Instead of S tier, I'm going to call it S plus tier. The reason there's only one person that really goes in there, and that is Seth. Yes. Seth is pretty much S plus tier because he pretty much carried the whole run. And yeah, he was pretty much an unstoppable wall. Even in the late game, some enemies couldn't even hurt him really. It was just the longer, there were a few magic type enemies that could deal damage, and that was pretty much it. There was really no one else that could do as much. It could do as much damage as Seth, and could just not get hurt at all. Only the magic users could really do any kind of damage to him in the late game. But that was not enough. Seth by himself could not carry the whole run in the last few chapters. He needed help, and unfortunately, all my other characters just weren't as good because I didn't use them as much. Let's see. So let's go over. Let's even make an F tier. Yeah, we're gonna call. We're gonna have an F tier as well. I think it's appropriate. Yeah, we're gonna have an F tier for a few characters. Basically, these are characters I never really used. So for example, like Amelia. So like, for example, I didn't use Amelia or Ross or Ewan. Like, they were useful for like maybe some items. Like Amelia had a speed wing, and Ewan had a dragon shield, so they were more useful than Ross just because of the item they started with, and those items I could give to Seth and make him like unstoppable. But like, they weren't very useful. Marissa started with a sham shear, so I'll give her that. So I'm just literally giving them higher points than Ross just because they had items that they started with that were just kind of useful. I used especially the stat boosting items. Those were especially beneficial. Yeah, so they did like nothing pretty much the whole run. Let's see. Let's go over a lot of these other characters. So first, let's see. How about Erica and Ephraim, since they're like the main lords? Ephraim was kind of useful in the late game. Like, I would have given him B tier, but in the late game, him and Seth were pretty much the only people capable of doing any kind of damage. So Ephraim really helped Seth out at the end, you know. And pretty much, if it wasn't just for a blunder at the end, I could have actually won the game, despite having made so many errors throughout, you know, especially in the late game. But yes, I think I'll give him A tier just because he did hold out very well, and I just, you know, despite the fact that I didn't use him that much, like he became really good. Eric, on the other hand, kind of a C tier. Pretty much, since it was an Iron Man, I just tried not to use her too much. And since I went Ephraim's route, Erica didn't really get leveled up, so she was very fragile. I didn't give her an angelic robe or anything because there were other characters that needed it more that I was actually using. So I just pretty much benched her, and she's strong. You know, her final, you know, her secret, like her holy weapon, allows her to do a lot of damage to monsters, but that's just like everybody else, though. So I gave her C tier because, you know, she's important to the plot. I just didn't use her as much. So she actually did something, though. Or actually, I don't know. Like in the early game, yeah, in the early game, she actually could hurt the stuff. But in the late game, I just held her in the back. Let's see, Arthur. Arthur was probably more of a B tier. Yeah, he ended up dying at the end. I mean, like near the chapter 16, and he was decent. You know, I was just kind of dumb about it. I didn't level him up enough. Maybe shouldn't have promoted him early, just like a lot of my other characters. And he ended up getting doubled to death, basically. But he was a decent attacker throughout the game. He could hurt monsters, and he had a really high resistance stat, which was beneficial in some areas. So I think Arthur deserves at least B tier for that. Yeah, I didn't really use him much for healing. His staff rank was kind of low. Should have made him a bishop probably. But yeah, so that's it. So I think I'll give him B tier because he actually did serve some purpose. Colm I'm gonna give, like, I don't know if I should give him B tier because his offensive abilities were pretty much useless, but he could steal, and he could get treasures. So some of those were stat boosters. So he was making Seth stronger by just stealing treasure and stealing items from enemies. And despite only being like level 2, with his super low speed, he could steal from pretty much everybody, like the whole game. Like the first 13 chapters, if there was ever something that needed to be stolen, he could steal it. There was like nothing he couldn't steal, even at like level 2. It's not like other Fire Emblem games where you actually need to level up your thief a little bit so that they get a better speed stat. No, Colm could steal anything. He didn't have any issues with that. And then even in chapter 15, he was useful for the desert map, so he could steal stuff. So, I mean, so he could get those, treasures in the desert. And so up until Rennick showed up, like, he was very useful. And he was the main thief for the game. Like, he pretty much is partially responsible for Seth becoming even stronger. So I think I'm going to give him B tier just for that, because he was pretty crucial. Rennick has much better offensive capabilities, and you get him later. But he just does what Colm does, and he has better stats. But you don't get him till like later in the game. So I don't know if I should put him higher. I mean, Colm has better availability, which is why I'll put Rennick lower. But maybe better than Erica, because Erica didn't really do much in the late game. Rennick pretty much did what Colm did, and he also stole like some stat boosters for Seth, like a dragon shield. And the only thing he couldn't steal was there was this elixir on a Valkyrie that he could not steal because the Valkyrie was faster than him, and that's it. Like literally any enemy in the game can be stolen from at base without like leveling up at all. For Colm, and then when Rennick shows up, you can just use Rennick instead. So yeah, so Colm's getting this high of a rank just for utility, because he was useful. We got Cormag. I think Cormag's like 8 tier. I was being pretty stupid at the end, but Cormag was pretty useful. I'm gonna put him maybe like lower A tier, I think. If he just didn't get killed. Dazla wasn't too good. His attacking was good. Okay, Erica. You know what? I think Erica should get G tier now that I think about it. But Dazla was kind of a C tier. He was just slow. Like, he's strong. Defense is okay, but he's just slow. And you don't have to level him up. He's a pre-promote, so you don't have to put a lot of effort into him, but his speed is really low, so that but luckily, even if he does get doubled, he's pretty tanky, so he could actually survive. So I think I Dussel. Dussel is probably one of the more useful characters in the game. So earlier on, Dussel is more useful than Ephraim, I think. It's just that Ephraim just turned out better in the end. But yeah, if it wasn't for Dussel's low speed, he would probably be almost as good as Seth. In a 0% growth run, he's actually, I think, like the best character. Actually, I think he's like the top character in 0% growth. But in regular playthrough, he's just quite, not quite as good. But his availability isn't as good as Seth's, but still decent. He does get like A rank in all 3 weapons, sword, axe, and spear, which is really good. And you can get him up to S rank in axes very quickly, and then he can use Garm in just a few chapters. So he's very good. He's very good with that for Garm, but so yeah. So I think I'll put him up here. I think he was more useful than Cormag in the long run, but so I think I'll go like this. See, I don't know. I don't know how to put him, because Ephraim really stood out at the end game, but for most of the game he was just just like so. It was just the end where he really became good after promotion. So I think I'll rank him like this. Let's see, or maybe like that, yeah. Let's see, Colm, Arthur, Rennick. Yeah, we'll leave it like this. So now, let's just do the Paladins all at once. So they could have been good. Like, I just didn't use them as much. So Franz in my games, he's just average. I don't like. He's not really that much better than Ford. This time around, Ford and Kyle got promoted. I could have promoted Franz at the end, but it didn't matter because I wasn't really using them. They were okay. They were just slow. Their defense was fine, but they were just slow. So they all ended up getting benched pretty much. And so they just ended up being not as good. I'll probably put them below Dozla. I think Kyle was the best, then Ford. Franz was unfortunately the worst. So this is not what it would be in a normal playthrough. A lot of people would probably put Franz in A tier, or some people would even put Franz in S tier. But in this playthrough, that is not what happened. They were just very mediocre. And I didn't really get to use them that much. So they're probably bottom S tier. I think Dozla might have had more use in the long run. Garcia was actually pretty good in the first few chapters, but then he ended up dying on the ship. So for being slow, and he would have gotten benched even if I didn't get him killed. So I'm gonna put him. I'm gonna put him around here. I think. And so then we have Garrick. See, Garrick would have been good, but he got killed. So, yeah. Like, so I don't know. Like, he had good stats. I promoted him, and then he just got killed just about instantly. I didn't really get to use him that much before he got killed because of Chapter 14. What happened in Chapter 14? He was unfortunately a casualty of that, and Seth attacking him with the javelin when he was berserk did not help the situation at all. So, and then the longbow archer finished him off. So Garrick didn't get to do much, but he would have been good if he had not died. I think he could have been pretty good. So I think I'm gonna give him B tier. Like a lower B tier, I think. Yeah, because his offensive potential was good. It just unfortunate how things turned out. Let's see. Then we have Gilliam. Gilliam's like D tier. Like, he's actually worse than Erica. Like, I didn't really get to. I didn't use him at all practically. Namie. Oh yeah, Namie. Namie can probably go in F tier as well, because I actually didn't use her at all. Like, Ross actually in the long run would have been more. Yeah, like, I think Namie is contender for probably one of the worst characters actually, and Loot. Yeah, loot I used a little bit. Did I? I might have actually used loot a little more than Gilliam, I think, at the end. Gilliam had armor, but loot actually did damage. I think even in chapter 9, I was actually using her a little bit. So she could have been good in a normal playthrough, so. But, you know, I didn't get to use her that much. Let's see. Let's see, what should we do? Okay. Then we got, let's see, who do I want to rank now? It's kind of tough to rank some of these. How about Tethys? Tethys is pretty easy to rank. She's A tier. I think. Like a lot of strategies are not possible without her. Like, I don't know if she's more useful than Dusel. I think I'll give her upper A tier. Like, she died near the end because I screwed up, but she's very vital for a lot of strategies. There's a lot of strategies you can't even pull off without her. You know, late game, you know, her, you know, in warp and all that, you know, she's very useful. And you get her like around the same time as Garrick, and she helped out in the next chapter, in chapter 14, and then a lot of the other chapters. So Tethys, I think, deserves A rank. I think she consistently gets A rank. I don't think it matters like what playthrough you use. Her ability is just always useful. So A rank for sure. Myrrh was good. Like you don't get her. You get her pretty late, but if you level her up in the chapter she joins, then she ends up being good, and she helped out with the heroes. She pretty much did stuff only Seth can do. Like on terms of offensive capabilities, she's pretty much as good as Seth. Her only weakness is Luna and bows. But other than that, she actually has better defense, and she actually has magic defense, resistance and everything. She can tank quite a bit, and honestly, her dying probably messed me up. Like, there's probably a lot of strategies I could have pulled off. I could have used her to tank Shadow Shot and a lot of other stuff like that, but I just, you know, if she hadn't died, there's a lot of other I could have used her to tank Shadow, to tank long-range siege tomes. I could have used Null for that with Phantoms, but those options were gone at that point, you know. So, because chapter 19 happened. But yeah, she was good. So her availability is bad, but when she is present, she's really good. Especially if you level her up in the chapter she joins, then she'll be good for chapters to come. Otherwise, she's a glass cannon. If you don't level her up, her defense would be like on Dusel's level, actually. It would, yeah, even if you don't level her up, her defense is like pretty much at Dusel's level anyway. So yeah, these characters had better, like, are better. Like, I think I'll put her here. Her availability is just not as good, and her weapon will run out eventually. You have 50 uses, which is actually very generous. As long as you don't go crazy, it's enough to finish the game with. So for Myrrh, so I think I'll give her A tier right here. Yeah, and then yeah, because she's vital. There's certain things I just couldn't do without her, pretty much. Mulder, I think deserves A tier also. he was bad at physicking and warping and all that stuff in the late game, but he was my consistent healer throughout the game, and he was pretty much the only reason Seth could get restored in Chapter 14. He was the only restore staff user pretty much for, in Chapter 14. And he somehow managed to survive that while getting berserked and just all sorts of crazy stuff. And so he was a very vital character throughout the game. I think I want to give him A tier for that. Despite not really having much, like as an attacker, he wasn't that great. His magic stat was just too low. So I think I'll give him A tier. Let's see. Then I have. I don't know Noel. Let's grade Noel. See, Noel is another one of those characters that would have been good. But he just got killed instantly. I might just give him C tier for that. Like, it's kind of sad. Like, he would have been good. Like Garrick. Garrick I would have put higher, but he just died practically instantly. I mean, he actually got to fight a little bit. Noel didn't get to fight at all. I made one summon, and then he just dies, like, instantly. Like, I promote him, and then that's it. He's just dead. Like, the first turn. I didn't even get to use him. Like, I was looking forward to it, and he just died because I put him a little too far, and he just gets doubled by a ranger, and that's it. He's dead. The Phantom died, and then he died. It was over so quick. So I can't really do much. Like, so I don't know if that puts him in F tier. Like, it's not fair to put him in F tier because I just played awful. Like, he could have been good. Maybe I should put another tier, like at a row. Wait. Yeah, I want to do this. So, I'm gonna call it died. I'm gonna died too quickly. Yeah, I'm gonna call this the died too quickly column. Wait. I'm getting all the colors mixed up. There we go. This one we're gonna make it gray. A very sad gray. And we're gonna put characters that could have been good, but I can't rank unrankable because they just died too fast, and because I played bad. So that's for those characters. So Garrick and Colm, I think, deserve that status more, especially Colm. Garrick at least got to do something. Because I want to differentiate these from those, because these characters normally wouldn't be good anyway. Lara Shell. Lara Shell, same thing. Like, she died too quickly. I fielded her in one chapter, and then I tried to. I mean, she was a decent healer. I could give her some credit for that. Like she was decent. I just didn't use her much as a healer. She was supposed to recruit Rennick, and then she died, so I ended up doing it with Ephraim. So that did not help. Then we have, let's do the heat. Let's do the flyers. We have Cyrene and Tana, and Vanessa. So normally Vanessa would be good, but I didn't get her leveled up in time, and she just kind of fell off. And I was just using Seth on everything, so she actually didn't serve much purpose. She could visit villages and stuff, but she ended up not being terribly useful, unfortunately. Her offense is worse than Erica's, but at least Vanessa had some utility for flyers. She became useful in the late game for moving Seth across the mountain and all that after I screwed up. Like in chapter 20 and 21, she had some purpose. And same thing with Cyrene, except Cyrene actually had some battle capabilities. So I actually she was actually kind of useful in a lot of occasions, actually. In the late game, because I screwed up, so Cyrene had some was useful. I mean, and Cormac had that too, but he was dead at that point, unfortunately, because I was being dumb. So Cyrene and Vanessa were good. And then Tana died, and she died too quickly also. But she at least recruited Cormac. She recruited Cormac and died saving a knight so that I could get a knight crest for Kyle. So Tana kind of stood out in that one chapter as like an MVP, but then she just died, so I didn't get to use her. She would have been my Vanessa replacement, but she was just too low of a level at that time. So yeah, I can't. It's kind of hard to rank her as well. So this is not how it is in a normal. Like I said, this tier list is not a normal tier list for normal playthrough, because this is just what happened in my playthrough, because because I was being stupid. So this is very different from how it is normally. I'm gonna put Orson and die too quickly. I mean, okay, maybe give him C tier. Like he's useful in the one battle he shows up in. So well, let's put him above Lara Shell. yeah, let's at least put him above Lara Shell. Then let's see, Innes. Innes is probably more of like a B tier character. He has bad availability. You get him later. Arthur did more, but Innes handled it well until he got killed in chapter 19. Just like Joshua. Joshua was just around longer. And he was pretty useful on a few occasions. Joshua could hold his own. Probably not as good as Arthur, but these were characters like I could actually use to do stuff, you know. And these are the characters that I could use to do stuff, and they were a little better. And then there's Seth, who's like, I'm putting an S plus just because there's a huge gap between Seth and everybody else. And Mirror's as good as Seth, she just has bad availability, which is why she's down here. Let's see, then we have Natasha, and yeah, Natasha was like a D tier. Like, she healed. She's kind of like Lara Shell. She didn't really get to do much. Yeah, I don't know. I want to put her only in one row. Yeah, she's kind of like Lara Shell. Okay, you know what? Lara Shell didn't do much of anything. She just healed a little bit in a few chapters, and that was it, I think. Natasha did less. I just used her to recruit Joshua, and that was about it. And I mean, I would have, yeah, in my next playthrough, I need to get her at least a C rank so that I don't get messed up later on. So we have Saleh. Saleh would have been good. Unfortunately, his staff rank's a bit low. Otherwise, he would have been a good, you know, could have used him for like warping and stuff, but he unfortunately also died too early. His availability is just like Innes's. Although I see he is more useful because he's a mage. He's not as good as Pent, obviously, like in Fire Emblem 7, but still good. Better than Joshua? Yeah. Arthur has better availability, so I'll put him higher. But put Saleh here. So these are people that are useful. Fortunately, some of them you just get late. Like Innes and Saleh, you get a bit late. And Colm's here because of he's useful. These die too quickly. I can't rank them because they just die too quickly in my playthrough. These are characters that would have been good if I wasn't being stupid, basically. Although Colm is a bit fragile, I will say that. These three are basically these three in my next playthrough, they still wouldn't get used, basically. Although I do know it is still possible in an Iron Man to use other characters, and if you do use them, they do get better. Like especially Ross, like Amelia and Ewan, you know, their availability is not as good. Especially Ewan, but Ross, some people use Ross actually because you get him really early. Then you have Marissa, yeah. They're just, yeah, they're probably not going to get used, and hopefully I don't get people killed again so quickly, and then Garrick and Noel can be more useful, and my next Iron Man Sacred Stones can go much better than this one. So yeah, this is not a normal tier list. I mean, Seth is always at the top no matter what tier list you use. He will always be the best character. Except 0% growths, where Dusel might actually be better than Seth in a 0% growths run. Otherwise, Seth is always top, like by far. Like nobody comes even close. So yeah, I think this is where I want to rank everybody. This is, like I said, this is not a normal tier list, you know, especially Franz and Vanessa. People would normally put them in like A tier. You know, they would just say, yeah. Other than that, I think this is normal. Like Loot would be higher in a normal playthrough. Lara Shell and Natasha would be higher in a normal playthrough. Yeah, like everyone else. Cyrene might be higher just for utility, and you know, Tana would also be higher. Garcia, Franz would be higher. Kyle and Ford might be like in B probably. Cole, and then everyone else, I think they're sort of where they would be. Arthur actually is pretty high up. Arthur would probably be like A tier. I didn't get to make him as good as he could have been. Arthur could have turned out better. So yeah. Yeah, I think this is the tier list. This is my Fire Emblem 8 Sacred Stones Iron Man tier list. Definitely, this is just what happened. This is what happened in my playthrough. This is not normal. This is not gospel. But anyway, just thought I'd share that. So yep, stay tuned for more stuff, content, tier lists, whatever random thing I decide to do next.